So now we want to actually move along in a very related theme. This is a hint, right? Hands, we're going to ask Jose Ortiz, our own marketing person here, to share his insights on sneakers, particularly Vans.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Thanks, AJ, for the
All
introduction.
Right. Great.
And
Great.
I was kind of hoping Scott didn't open these floodgates, but he did it anyway. So I'm going to go a little bit off script here and talk about Supreme, actually, because that was a brand that had a big impact on me in high school. So just to kind of flesh out more on what Scott was talking about. So Supreme is a skateboarding brand that started in New York in 1993. And the way their drops work, it's a little different from the tweeting out, like Scott mentioned, but every Thursday, they release out a new collection, and that collection is limited. And that happens during 2 seasons of the year. So it happens between, I believe, January and June, and then August to December. So there's only really 2 months they're not releasing clothes, and that comes in a fall, winter, and spring, summer collection. And actually, going in with my main topic, Vans, Supreme and Vans was actually the first collaboration Supreme ever had. They collaborated on the Vans Old School, which I'll dive into a little deeper. But the reason Supreme has so much notoriety among younger generations and people really just my age is because of that limited drop thing that I mentioned. So you could expect a size run of maybe 200 shirts per size each week. So when it's a limited quantity like that, you really see a resale value go up. So it's kind of something that you could relate back to Jordans that you see nowadays, where people are buying Jordans and they're selling them for 10 times the asking price, the original retail price. And that's the same thing that's happening with Supreme. And
Vans was the same way when they first came out.
Exactly, yeah.
You couldn't get them.
And Supreme has collaborated with brands like the Muppets. They have a Supreme Kermit T-shirt. Several celebrities like Morrissey, Madonna. The list goes on. It's really just a brand that's been ingrained with the skateboard culture. But now I can go back to, oops.
You okay?
Yeah.
Now I do want to mention as we go through this, Jose, thanks for that praise. That was really fascinating. We're going to do a survey, right?
We are
later in the show.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So we already did it. So never mind.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm just going to be speaking about the history of Vans, and you may be wondering, why did they pick Jose? What credentials does he have? Well,
why did they pick Jose?
Well,
and what credentials do you have?
I'm about to show you right now. So if I'm not tooting my own horn here, here's a little picture of me when I was 7 with my skateboard. That was the first day I got my skateboard, and it was also the last day I rode it because I fell about 5 minutes after that photo was taken. But yeah, I've been skateboarding for almost my whole life. I only stopped really recently, around 3 years ago, but skateboarding is something that's always been a part of me, and it's something that, especially Vans, has always been something that I hold dear in my life, as something that's helped me grow. So if we move right along, okay. We start with the Van Doren Rubber Company. And the Van Doren Rubber Company was the first storefront that was started by Paul and Jim Van Doren in 1966. And actually, for those of us in Irvine, this is actually not too far away. This was opened up in Anaheim. So originally, this was started, as I stated, a rubber company that created their shoes on premise and sold directly to the consumers. And actually, you could kind of tell Van Doren Rubber Company, that doesn't really roll off the tongue too well. So that's where the name Vans came from. Their skater customer base didn't want to say the whole name. So instead they would say, let's just go to Vans. And that starts with and this begins with the first shoe, the Vans 44, otherwise known as the Authentic nowadays. So the Authentics were the first shoes that came out of the Van Doren Rubber Company. And they were, like I said, they were made on premise and sold directly to the consumers.
Was this like the Edison's light bulb? 1 through 43 were just
no, pretty random, but good thought. So because of the rubber soles and the canvas upper paneling that they used at Vans at the time, these shoes were considered really rugged and durable. So that's why the main consumer base at the time were skateboarders, because they needed a shoe that wouldn't get destroyed by their, reckless use of shoe wear at the time. Which, if you've ever ridden a skateboard, your shoes go away in about 3 months' time.
Particularly the tops.
Yeah, the tops especially. The next 10 years later, in 1976, Vans released the 95, which is now known as the Era. It was designed by 2 skateboarders, Tony Alva and Stacy Peralta, who were from Santa Monica. I'll go a little more in depth with them later, but the biggest feature that was different from the original Authentic that was seen in the Era was that padded collar. I don't know if you could see it. It's more visible in that top photo, the black and white one, but they added a padded collar because like I said, skateboarding is a rough sport, so they wanted just a little more protection around that ankle area. But another key feature, which I'll also touch upon a little later, is like you see in that bottom photo, because of the more thick design, I guess you could say, due to the collar, Vans was able to create different colored panels on the era, and this added a different effect for each shoe. So each shoe could have a different color panel, and it allowed much more customization and free-flowing creativity to be shown in their shoes. And then the last three original silhouettes that Vans released that are still very relevant now were the 36, which is the left, now known as the old school. This was actually the first Vans shoe to feature a leather design, leather paneling at the top for increased durability. It was also the first shoe to feature that jazz stripe that's on the side. And the main reason the Van Dorns decided to utilize this is because they didn't want a plain black leather shoe. Then in the middle, we have the 98, which is now known as the slip-on. And this was created because skateboarders and BMXers alike were getting tired of their shoelaces getting stuck either in their gears, in their wheels while they were riding and just flying off of and just hurting themselves. And finally, we have the 38, which is the second shoe that Vans released with that leather paneling. And it also featured the jazz stripe. But the key difference between the skate high and the old school was that the skate high, obviously, as you could tell, was a high top. And this was created, obviously, in part due to the realization that skateboarders needed more protection around the ankle. Because when you're back at the time in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, vert skating was the biggest thing. And when you're vert skating, that would mean you're going up in the air. And any miscalculation of air time would mean you're getting a piece of plywood or maple wood, actually, that's what skateboards are made of, sorry, straight to the ankle. And that obviously hurts extremely bad. So that was the main reason for the skate high being developed. So this is the part that I was excited to talk about, and that's skateboarding. So the two skaters I mentioned earlier, Stacy Peralta and Tony Alva. Stacy Peralta is on the left, if you look at the slides, and Tony Alva were on the right. These are actually two extremely prominent skateboarders who are kind of thought of as the starters of the modern skateboarding movement, especially vert skating and ramp skating. So as you can see with Tony on the right, like I mentioned, they're both originally surfers. So they use their bodies and their skateboards to kind of surf the terrain they would use. And even actually with Stacy, that picture is one of the main reasons they started this Vans Off the Wall logo, because he's quite literally going off the wall of that pool he's in. So they thought, skateboarding's our biggest money grab. And Stacy's one of the biggest skateboarders in California right now. Why not run with it? But like I mentioned, these two designed the era. And a little fun fact about the era's original drop. So when the era originally released in 1976, it came in a paneling that was blue and red. And the reason for that was when Tony used to go to the store in 1966, he would always get one shoe red and one shoe blue. And they would save the other shoes because they knew if he got one left red shoe, one right blue, next time he came in, he's going to need the opposite. So because of that, they said, let's pay homage to our biggest skater that we've ever, sponsored at the time. And let's release this shoe in honor of him. Can you go back? Sorry about that. So another big thing about skateboarding was that Vans, actually, the original reason for sponsoring skaters was that they wanted more of a street presence because they understood that skating was their main audience. Skateboarders were their main audience, but they understood that in order to actually have a audience larger than skateboarding had to become more of a large scale event. So that with Stacy and Tony, this became perfect because Stacy and Tony actually kind of revolutionized the competitive skating aspect that we can see now in things like the X Games. And while skateboarding is in the Olympics now, it's much different from what Stacy and Tony would participate in back in the 80s and 70s. Yeah. So what we see now in the Olympics is more of a street skating, but this is much more like something you would see Tony Hawk do back in the day.
And back in the day, the guys skating in pools were doing stuff that whoever owned the pool probably didn't want them doing.
I mean, they probably didn't even know.
They'd go into a backyard where there was an empty pool and tear it up.
I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but I've done that a few times with my own pool. My dad yelled at me a few times for draining it out, but that's besides the point. So now we go into why Vans is kind of still relevant now. So in 1982, Vans was, the checkerboard slip-on, which, Jock, if you don't mind, that we see here in person.
Actually, we can thank Scott Keeney and Leo Griffin for the fact that I even have these.
Right. Yeah, but like I was saying, in 1982, in the film Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the slip-on was featured by the main actor Sean Penn, And that was kind of the real first big push that was seen with Vans in pop culture and kind of just a larger audience.
I gotta be honest with you, when that movie came out, I was convinced it was just a biography of my high school.
I think when that movie came out, my parents hadn't even met yet.
Yeah.
So, but this kind of catapulted.
Wait a minute, what are you trying to say there, Jose?
Don't worry about it. So this kind of really catapulted Vans into more of instead of a skateboarding shoe, it's a shoe that you could wear just anywhere you wanted to go. If you were going to get food with some friends, even in a suit, people could put on a pair of black slip-ons and still look really spiffy. But this kind of celebrity presence is still relevant now. So we see people like, I didn't add the photos, but you could see people like Virgil Abloh, who is now the artistic director for the men's line at Louis Vuitton, wearing Vans. People like Kanye West. The late Paul Walker was known and quoted for saying he would always have to wear his Vans, and he'd actually always wear them on set and in the Fast and Furious films. So that kind of just shows that Vans went from kind of a street presence to just 1 year, one chance was all it took, and it became kind of a mainstream kind of image and brand that everyone knows about, really, especially in Southern California. Vans is,
these guys are the largest brand at VF.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And in Southern California, you really can't go anywhere without seeing a pair of Vans, especially in the area we're in Orange County.
Yep.
But now we can go into what I kind of personally like about Vans, and that's collaborations. So on the left, we have what's my kind of almost favorite shoe of all time, is a collaboration between Vans and The Simpsons. And what's special about this collaboration was that Vans brought in several different artists to work with The Simpsons in order to create their own artwork for each individual shoe. And my favorite is the work done by the American artist Cause. So as you can see on the shoe, it's kind of, you can see Bart there on the left panel on the lower picture. And Cause is known for doing this kind of lifeless, emotionless artwork. And Vans brought him in, and along with other artists, just to kind of show everything that each artist had to offer. And that's still one of the few collaborations I've seen, even now, that allowed artists to come in and just kind of take two brands' imaging and work it into their own way. And on the right, we have someone that hopefully everyone recognizes with Mickey Mouse. So we have a Vans and Disney collaboration, and it really just shows the reach of Vans to be able to collaborate with a brand like Disney. And actually, now that I think about it, if you think about Disney acquiring Fox, that Simpsons collaboration is a Disney collaboration now too. But Vans has collaborated with Disney on multiple different fronts. So there's a Vans and Marvel collaboration. There's a Vans and Star Wars collaboration. And it really just shows the overarching reach Vans has now as a footwear manufacturer.
When I was a kid, the artistics would draw on their Vans. A piece of canvas.
Good segue, Jock. Because on the left, I would like to thank Greg Petrosor for asking his daughter to send in a pair of her customized Vans with some flowers on the front. And because, like I mentioned earlier, the Vans are a canvas design, it really means that if I wanted to grab Jock's black and white checkered Vans right now and just draw whatever I wanted with a Sharpie, it'd stay on because it's canvas.
That's right.
So they're really customizable, and it really just lets you buy a plain white pair of Vans and do whatever you want with them just to kind of express yourself.
But don't tag my shoes, man.
I was trying not to. And then I added that shoe on the right, just kind of because I've had about 10 pairs of these. So these are a collaboration between Vans and Alix. And Alix is an American belt and utility manufacturer that's known for their strong metal quality. So the only real big difference between these shoes and a normal authentic is that the eyelets are a titanium and steel blend. So if you drop something on your shoe, you'll know it'll make a really loud sound. And the other thing was that if you see that stitching towards the back of the shoe, that was because if you're a little lazy like me and you don't want to put your shoe fully on, you could just slide your foot in, and that stitching allows the shoe to become a slipper. So now you have two ways to rock your Vans. And honestly, the slipper way looked really cool. And then the final thing I had to mention was, I'd like to thank Jock for this, was that when he went to the VF offices in Switzerland, they had this conference room, which you could rent out. And I think this is just a really big homage to their roots of skateboarding and surfing, and really that Santa Monica, Orange County beach vibe.
It's actually a really cool place. I mean, all of Vans offices are, but they had gondolas that were conference rooms and a variety of other vehicles that people would reserve.
Fantastic. That was really exciting.
Thank you, AJ.
And do we have results from the survey? I think, did we take the survey?
In fact, Scott and I had a conference room in the gondola.
Really?
Yeah, we had a meeting with
So
their.
do we have results? They're not from the survey? You can share that?
They're shared right now.
Oh, they are shared. Okay, great. Okay, so take a look at the chat and on those survey results.
You know what the problem is? I don't think our production crew shared them with us.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway.
I will add this.
Anyway.
Even though I did the presentation, I forgot to wear my Vans today.
Wow.
So with that, I'll say thank you,
Well,
everyone.
Not yet. We want you to put your 38s on and go to behind the Vans corporate office here in, just about 5 miles from here. They have a half pipe. We'd love to see you do that skate.
Yeah, no. We need Jose back here on Monday. So yeah, no half pipes.
I'm gonna have to agree with Jock. I might fall before I get to the half pipe.
Okay.
But thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all your time, and have a good rest of the day.
Great. Thanks,
Thanks, Jose. Well done.
All right.